my butt. Suck my butt.
How would you children like to suck on my chocolate salty balls?
Oh, you mean like a chocolate candy?
No, I mean my balls.
What's up,
Suck my balls.
ladies and gentlemen?
Suck my balls.
Welcome back
Suck my
to a
balls.
Suck My Balls SMB review
Suck my balls.
for season 26,
Suck my balls.
episode
Suck my balls.
number 2.
Suck my balls. Suck my balls.
Just as we are each and every week, we like to review South Park for you.
Suck my balls.
We also review the
Suck
podcast
my balls.
version.
Suck my balls.
If you like that. Man, I'm so out of it. I'm just like you. I'm all lit up. We also review the show in podcast version, and we do so in order, which you can check out on all podcast outlets. We just dropped more crap from season 11, but right now we're here to talk to you about season 26, episode number 2. Joe, what's it titled?
The Worldwide Privacy Tour.
Worldwide Privacy Tour. And it's interesting that they decided to kind of go back a little bit into pop culture, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think that this is a relevant topic right now in regards to what's going on in the world, but it definitely was relevant within the last year in regards to the last time South Park made new episodes.
Definitely. I mean, they've just only kind of slipped out of relevancy in the last few weeks or so. Like, ever since the book came out, it's kind of gone to a hush. But like, I feel like this is.
So I thought that was fake, but okay, so good to know.
Yeah, no, he had a book come out last month. He signed a 2-book deal. So there's another one coming.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Right. And so, but it was like just a little poorly. I wonder, like, if maybe they had this one ready to go first, and then they just did Cupid Ye, and like the network or something was like, no, you gotta go with this one first.
Right, and it was relevant to the Valentine's Day to start off with Cupid Ye, but this episode, as you mentioned, titled Worldwide Privacy Tour, it parodies I guess it would be the Prince of England, Harry, or whatever his name is, right? And then his wife. So, but they're parodying in the version of which South Park does everything in Canada, because it's important in Canada, therefore it's important to the rest of the world. Therefore.
Well, I mean, technically, he is the Prince of Canada too.
Oh, he is? I mean,
yeah, it's a dominion of the United Kingdom. So, like,
I'm American.
Like,
I don't care. Okay.
His grandma is on their money, bro.
Oh, I don't know this. Well, that's good. On the loony, the toonie, the boonie, the rooney. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what these things are, but I'm sorry if you're Canadian. Sorry, I'm not. No disrespect. I know we have Canadian listeners, but I'm sure you probably don't sit around here and memorize all the United States presidents as well. So I think we're on even ground.
No, they think like the United States is like Vegas, LA, Chicago, and New York. Like just a bunch of big, large cities.
I don't know about the Outlands.
Yeah, no.
Well, let's talk about this episode. So it starts with the notion, of course, that, like I said, they're making fun of the queen, the queen dying, right? That's actually how it starts out itself. They make fun of the fact that the queen dies, and Ike is, of course, having a breakdown, if you will. And Kyle, of course, is upset, and he's kind of over it because she died months ago, which they point out, but Ike is still having withdrawals from the fact that the Queen of Canada, or I guess the Queen of England, I don't know, what queen, somebody died. And therefore it was sad for the rest of the world, right? So
sad for Canada and therefore the world.
For the world. So Kyle, all he wants to do is just play video games. He just wants to play a game with his friends. Dark Knight, I think that's what he kept saying, or something like that. And then Ike is just having a meltdown. So let me show a quick 15, 20 seconds here of that scene. So yeah, as you can see here, Kyle, he comes in, he's talking to Ike. Ike's having a meltdown there as he sees the queen being dropped off. And then you texted me this, Smelly John is what they said instead of
yes.
And then he plays the song, Gran, and then about her death.
Quiff in the wind.
Quiff in the wind. That's right. That's the song.
Hey, you were just a quiff in the wind.
Oh, yeah, just quiff in the wind. So following that scene in regards to South Park, it jumps forward. Kyle's now explained to his friends and he's sorry he couldn't play video games. And they're like, that's fine, dude, whatever. Like, we don't care. It's, you're our friend, but whatever. And things happen. So Butters, though, convinces Kyle after seeing him in the hallway having, some frustration, and doubt about his friends, and tells him that he needs to rebrand himself. He needs to work on his image. And this, of course, is a comical satire on how younger people these days, potentially, and maybe even older people, I don't know. I'm not keeping tabs on this, but people are very swayed, or it just seems like everybody's fucking into trying to be internet famous these days, right? So it's everybody's got they're trying to build their own brand. And as a result of that, they're trying to come up with bullet points and key phrases that describe themselves, to put themselves into specific genres and niches that way it can be marketed to, so that way they, as a product, can be sold. Right. And that's basically what has become of the internet in certain ways. You have a majority of a lot of people who want to get internet famous or want to get some sort of internet clout, so that way they can acquire sponsorships and advertising and create revenue, so that way they can make an income, which I'm not hating on. But there are also people that are doing it for non-content creation related reasons. It's more like, I just want to be an influencer. I just want to get big and I just want to show you my muscles, or fuck America, or I'm going to be an influencer. I'm hot. You know what I mean? Type shit for the sake of being an influencer versus actually just, influencing in a positive way. Like a Mother Teresa would be considered an influencer, right? Back in the day.
Right.
I'm just rambling here.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's a bunch of people trying to be internet famous for a bunch of stupid reasons, instead of trying to be an influence on people by positive doing good things.
Yeah, there you go. A better way of saying it. So following this, as I mentioned, Butters approaches Kyle in the hallway here, and he's, you need to rebrand yourself. So Kyle and Butters head to the playground now after this interaction, and Butters starts to explain to Kyle, look, you need to come up with a different version of yourself. And even Kyle asked the question, Butters, what's going on with you? You've changed. And Butters is like, well, I went to a group. I have a guy, and we worked on my brand, and that brand's company, that name, it's Cum Hammer Brand Management. I just found this ridiculously funny.
Yeah, because you think if they had better brand management, they would have a different name. But at the same time, it's very memorable. It stays with you.
In regards to that, in this case, Joe, this is Cum. Really, this is Cum Hammer. So that is the name of their company, and they of course work on different ways to accentuate the influencer by, as I mentioned, kind of narrowing down 3 to 4 bullet points about the individual, so that way they can be marketed and sold. So each individual has their own, brand kind of packaging. It kind of reminded me of, in a way, of a more professional version of Cartman's, shitting on your walls from back in the day, where Cartman had his own little office. But this is what I was thinking for your custom package. We're going to go with the baby poo green on the wall. But instead of that, it was the Cum Hammer guy talking about brand management. Did you get that vibe, or was that just me?
Oh no, I totally caught the same vibe.
Classic, trying to put together a package for somebody that's not necessarily going to really be tailored to them. It's just generic algorithm statements and information.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. It was a lot of buzzwords and just buzzwords and shit to grab attention, which is all anyone on the internet does lately.
There you go, man. You're so much more articulate than I am right now. Joe's on that that blunt high. I'm on the dab high. So my brain it's not connecting stuff sometimes. Sorry. Back in South Park here, though. Now Kyle is going to have his meeting, but before we jump over there, we jump back to the Prince of Canada and his wife, and this is where I guess you'd say the story arc of really the episode starts. is they're on a worldwide privacy tour. That's the name of the episode. And they are abhorrently and, over the top, ridiculously trying to get people to not pay attention to them where they really want you to pay attention to them. That's the joke, right? Is you are yelling as loud as you can, if there's birds out there, but really you just want the attention of you yelling at the birds. So these people are out here yelling and screaming, don't look at us, don't look at us, don't look at us, when really they want to be looked at.
Hey, look at me. Right? Don't look at me.
It's the modern day version of the Harley bike rider. We don't have Dane here, so I can't say the word, damn it. But you get it. It's in the dictionary. They changed it, but if Dane was here,
it's a bundle of sticks.
The bundle of sticks, but if Dane was here, he would say it.
And then call us that for being afraid to say it.
FAG as well. I'll spell it out. FAG. But that is exactly that was what I got the vibe there, as well, kind of referring back to that. Look at me. I need the type of attention. The narcissist, right? Who's like, so into themselves that they don't want you to be into them, but they also want you to be into them. It's what I would, there's other, I would equate that to how there's certain women, and I'll use this as example, and guys, but there's more or less, I'd say women in this regard who are on the internet and they might reveal themselves in sexual ways and say, don't leave disgusting and sexual comments on my posts and whatnot, but then turn around and they have an OnlyFans account where you can pay to see them in their more disgusting and sexual poses. So you know what I mean? So it's that type of attention seeking, right? It's for selling your brand. And that's essentially what Butters is trying to get across to Kyle, and what Kyle encounters all these people doing at Cum Hammer. And that's where we then continue out from the Prince of Canada, as they were on Good Morning Canada doing their worldwide piracy tour, made their, statement about we're going to travel the world, trying to tell people not to pay attention to us anymore. So they go to this montage of them traveling the world. It's actually really funny, a really funny montage. But we can't listen to it right here. But this is actually a really funny montage. The Worldwide Privacy Tour, and it's got
which is a total Beatles Magical Mystery Tour ripoff, by the way.
Right. So you see them traveling over India. So now they're in India. We want our privacy. We want our privacy. And they're just going country to country. Australia.
Yeah, Sydney.
Telling people we want our privacy and to stop looking at us as they get back into New York, and they do it at the basketball game here. We want our privacy. They eventually do make it to South Park, Colorado, and they take over. What's interesting though, when they make it to South Park, Colorado here, they're going to be in the middle of the town, taking over at first, and then later on, it cuts back to them reflecting, like they want to stay here, which I thought it was just a weird placement of clips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For story-wise line contour, you would think that they'd show up and be like, "Oh, we'd like to be here in this small little town," and then
right,
maybe rioting or whatever. We want our privacy in the middle of the streets, but either way, as you saw there, they got to South Park and they decided that they're now going to live in South Park. So what do? I kind of got sad at first when I first saw this. They moved into the Cartman's old house. They bought the Cartman's old house and moved in. And I was like, oh man, that's Cartman's old house.
Which means Cartman's never getting that shit back.
I think so. I want to say, it looked like his house, but canonically speaking, if we look at from the South Park games, just how it works, Cartman's house is technically next door to Kyle, not.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they're across the street.
But it did look like Cartman's house as far as the color and what it looked like where Cartman lived. So that's why I was jumping to that conclusion. Maybe I'm wrong. Drop your comment in the comment section here below on YouTube and let us know. Joe, after the moving in of this privacy tour, the prince and his wife they're out on their lawn, lighting fireworks throughout this episode, playing their drum. He's playing his drums. He's got his megaphone and all this other shit. Just being the worst neighbors possible.
Playing polo at one point.
Knocking the bocce ball, whatever it is, through the window.
They were playing polo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Knocking the ball through the fucking window. I didn't know what that ball was called, but so we jumped back over to Cum Hammer now, and we've got the guy kind of showing Kyle the different options that they can take in building his brand. And they're just really generic logos, Kyle, sensitive, outdoorsy, frugal, victim. But the common thread here is victim. Wealthy.
Yes.
The multi-talented Grammy Award winner. Oh, wait, this is for the wrong person.
This one's already taken.
This one's already taken. Who did you think they were taking a shot at there? I thought maybe that might have been Kanye or just.
Oh, totally.
But I also thought in just general, it could have been any artist too, right?
That felt like a shot at Kanye.
I did feel like a shot at Kanye. Okay. I'm a genius, voice of a generation. This is what we were referring to. Here's the prince and his wife deciding that they're going to go ahead and stay. Kyle eventually does come up with his own brand. Where he, decides that, he's going to be cool and nice and, try to, get along with his friends and blah, blah, blah. But because he goes to school the next day and he apologizes for not being able to play because the prince and them moved in and they're like, that's cool, dude, whatever, But then Cartman, of course, drops that amazing line.
Literally dripping with drip, bro.
Literally dripping with drip is what it says. Because he refers to the video game and how awesome
they leveled up to level 12 because they've all been playing without Kyle.
Right, exactly. We came back from commercial break here, and they were doing this brand management marketing thing about how you can improve your kids' lives and your brand. And it's all these children in montages here with phones and about building a better version of them at Cum Hammer brand management. This will be probably a good clip later to watch on TikTok or YouTube. We'll probably have that out there. And as you can see, Kyle here is taking notes. He's got lesson 1, the basics. And the guy's going to tell him to turn to page 5 to get started about building his new brand. Following that scene there, we jump forward, and as I mentioned, you see the fireworks. Respect our privacy. Respect our privacy.
Leave us alone.
Leave us alone. It's ridiculous in the middle of the night that they're doing this.
It is.
So over the top. Oh my gosh. All right, so jumping back into the cafeteria, this is a good scene. We've got the boys who basically tell Kyle, look, dude, we don't give a shit about the prince anymore and his wife. You've been talking about it much. But the best thing is Cartman looks over to Stan. He goes, Stan, are you going to say it? So you didn't tell him? And Stan's like, why? Do I really have to? Or something like that? Or do I really need to? Or why can't you do it? So Stan, of course, being the best friend, has to tell Kyle, look, dude, we really don't give a shit about this. And we really don't want to hear about this anymore. And then Kyle's like, well, I'm not trying to be all about this. They just keep showing up at my front door. And then Tolkien makes a really great point. Yeah. And now you've put it in front of our face. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good, just point in general. You can't be that type of person that constantly bitches about your problems to your friends and family without providing a solution. Because then at that point, you're going to eventually make it everybody else's problem. And realistically, you shouldn't make other people's problems, your problems, other people's problems. You know what I mean?
See, and I didn't even take it that deeply. I just took it as commentary on internet culture the whole time. You say, all these people will say, let's take Sunday's halftime performance, for example. Oh, I didn't care. You see more people saying they didn't care about the performance than people actually talking about it. Or maybe it's on an even keel, but you see these people, oh yeah, no, I don't care about it. Well, you say you don't care about it, yet you're putting it in my face.
Before we went to our next commercial break, we saw Kyle and his new brand management after going to the Cum Hammer again was to not care, to be ruthless, and to, of course, be a victim. So now part of that is he just doesn't care. So now the Prince of Canada and his wife are upset by the fact that Kyle's not reacting, and he decides to stick his dick onto the window of Kyle's house. And we learned out that him being royal, he's going to have a royal penis. You know what I'm saying? Royal blue.
Yeah.
He knocks on the window and he's like, I'll show my dick penis, my blue penis on your window. So he starts wagging it there and wiping it up on the window. And Kyle just continues to ignore him. And he's just plays his video game like there's nothing wrong and there's not a care in the world. And of course, this is going to infuriate the prince and his wife further.
Leads them to go to Cum Hammer.
It leads them to go back to Cum Hammer, as we found out that they actually were, they've been previous clients, or she at least was. She was in the national database, sorority girl, actress, drunk, victim. Or something along those lines. But before we got back in there, we're back in school. I want to show this. This is kind of cool. We saw Kyle coming back into school after being, cool now. And he does one of those montages where he walks through the cafeteria and he's all like, cool now and whatnot. Walking through, not giving a shit what people think of him, and doing the whole finger pointing at people in the hallway. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Hey, Charlie, nice to see you again. That type of bullshit. Comes up to his bro. He's like, hey, what's up, dude? So if you want to get together and play some video games, I'm pretty cool. Otherwise, I really don't care either way or whatever. It's cool, man. Whatever. Basically, trying to be cool. It's cool. Trying to be too cool for school, Joe. You ever been too cool for school, Joe?
No. I've always been tragically uncool.
Well, we jump out to the yard now as Jimmy explained to Kyle that Butters is getting the shit kicked out of him. So here's that fight scene, and we see Bebe just beating the shit out of Butters. Kyle shows up and he finds out, he asks the question like, hey, what the hell is going on here? And Baby is like, Butters is being an insensitive asshole thinking he can come up to me and just say that shit to me. And Butters like, I'm just trying to be a strong, assertive guy. So I think he walked up to her and said something like, you dumb bitch or something.
Go fuck yourself, baby.
Go fuck yourself, baby. That's what he says. Right? And he's trying to explain to Kyle. And Kyle's like, dude, let's get the hell out of here. Baby's like, you're lucky he saved your ass here. And he's like, fuck you, you fucking bitch, as he leaves. And that's, of course, as you mentioned, they're at Cum Hammer now. Here's the reveal that the prince and the wife had, of course, been there before. And they need to work on their brand because they're upset by the fact that Kyle is not reacting to them anymore, of course. And that's their brand, getting people to react to them. And this all, of course, now culminates in Cum Hammer, or at least part of the end of the episode, as Kyle comes back in with Butters and he sees them in there and they all realize, or at least Kyle makes one of his I've learned something here type of speeches without saying I've learned something today. He comes to the notion that, look, we're just kind of selling ourselves here as brands rather than actually being people. You know what I mean? Connecting with each other, communicating, learning, growing. We're just trying to sell ourselves and trying to fit into little boxes, what we think we all what they tell us we should be. Little boxes on the hillside. So everyone agrees with him except for the prince's wife. And they break up. They're done because he leaves because he wants to go and try and actually have privacy. And she doesn't. She just wants to, be a brand whore, right? That was the joke we got from there. And finally, we wrap the episode up here as Kyle is hanging out inside of his house. He wants to play video games. Ike won't let him play again. And Kyle comes to the realization, you know what? That's just who you are, Ike. You care a lot. But all of a sudden, his buds show up. They knock at the door and they're like, you know what, dude? You look like you've been going through some shit lately. And maybe you just want to come outside and play. And, you've been basically kind of saying, dude, I think you've been hanging out on the internet too much. Or you've been hanging out inside too much. Why don't you come outside and let's interact, which is what Kyle wanted, right? That was the whole point of it. I've learned something here type of monologue there at the end near in the previous scene. So they all decide, hey, let's go play some basketball. So they go to the basketball court here. And then the prince shows up and the prince says, hey, can I play too? And they're like, yeah, sure. But he just wanted to play drums. That's what he meant.
And he said, yeah, he sets his kid up.
He just wants to play. He just wanted to be a guy, a kid. Can I play too? And he just sets this kid up here and he just starts jamming out. And they're all like, yeah, I don't know. All right. That's cool. Whatever. Which is true. If you were playing basketball and someone did show up and was like, hey, can I play? And you're like, sure. And then they pulled out a basket,
Mm-hmm.
like a drum kit, and they started jamming while you're playing basketball. I'd be like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool that you brought your drum kit here. I like that. I like that.
That's like how the street ball scene in New York started. Some dude just like came out with his tables one day and just like, while everyone was balling.
Right?
Beating off the dog is not appropriate when we have company.
Anyway, beating off the dog is
Giggity.
it's not appropriate at all. So that's kind of your full
Ever.
ever.
It's not
Right.
appropriate ever.
Not appropriate ever. So that's kind of your full recap here as far as for the episode. Subscribe to Suck My Balls, a South Park review on Spotify, Apple's, iTunes, anywhere you want to download a podcast. Just type that in, subscribe to our feed. You'll get the latest, greatest episode each and every week. You can also listen to us on YouTube and go back and watch some videos or any of our library. It's all there. Suck My Balls, South Park review. So, yeah. All in all, I thought it was a funny episode. Joe, you texted me during the middle of this episode that you were not necessarily the biggest fan of Cupid Ye. Obviously, you weren't here last week when me and Dane reviewed that one. You can go back and check out season 26, episode 1, Cupid Ye review. But you made a point to say that you thought this episode was fire. Why did you think this episode was so good?
Just any time they've gone into the royal family seems to be pretty funny. It was basically everything I liked about last week without the stupid Cartman Ferry bullshit, because I fucking hate Cartman and Ferry Cartman. But it just
as a wrestling writer and booker, do you feel like that's the point of Cupid Ye, to be the heel that you're supposed to hate him?
I think he's supposed to be the cute heel or something like that. Like, I get what you're saying, but the hatred I have for him isn't like, oh, I love to hate this guy. Like, you're supposed to hate a heel.
He's got X-Pac heat with you.
I hate using that term with X-Pac on
I know.
I was gonna say it has go home heat.
Go home. He's got
it's go home heat. Like, it's because it's really funny. X-Pac never really seemed to ever have quote unquote X-Pac.
Yeah, heat. I liked X-Pac heat. I liked X-Pac personally.
Well, go back and watch it. Unless they do a lot of creative editing or piping stuff in, I don't see what people are saying.
I think they just meant like he maybe at the time, and we could get more into details. We'd go down a rabbit hole here, but maybe there was some sort of television analytics that said that when X-Pac was on at that time in the early 90s, people would just turn the channel. This is, of course, pre-DX and NWO days, but like back when he was 1, 2, 3 kid, if you will, starting out, X-Pac, starting out there, were his matches to the point where people were just, or was he so non-charismatic that people just didn't care and they changed the channel?
I don't know, man. That match he had with Bret Hart in like 93 was fucking fire.
I can't disagree.
Go back and like anyone listening to this that is a wrestling fan, go back and watch that.
So overall, I liked this episode too. I thought it was funny. I would have liked to. How do I put this? It's interesting because, right before this episode started, I was watching. I guess it was post-COVID. They were airing, right? And they were showing the end of the episode when I happened to turn on like 5 to 10 minutes beforehand.
Yeah. It was the vaccination special, the Q special, the South Park.
Okay, so that's what it was. I'm sorry,
yeah.
It was the South Park Q special. That's the one. And interestingly enough, they were talking about how like we'll do the 2-2-3 rotation. And I was watching as this episode, this season has started, right? We had a Cartman episode, which was last week, and now we've got a Kyle episode. So we're not really getting a true episode yet where all 4 boys are involved together going through an adventure yet. We haven't really had one since last year's season finale, I want to say.
Right.
Or at least
And
the episode prior to the season finale, the St. Patrick's Day episode. I think the paintball episode is probably the last real all four boys episode we've had recently.
yeah, and there
Oh,
was
my
still
teenager hates me.
right, and there's still a pretty fractured relationship, at least as far as last week went with Stan and Kyle.
You're right. There's still that little bit of that. And then, we had the streaming wars, which I talked about with Dane, and I'd like to get your thoughts before we go here. Were you disappointed at all that they didn't address the fact that Cartman had tits and now he doesn't have tits? Or are you under the impression, like I made a point to say last week, that Paramount and Comedy Central are just now on alternate timelines?
I was gonna say probably different universes or something like that. It'll get addressed at some point.
Yeah. I would have liked to found out how Cartman got rid of the tits. Unless the next special that comes out
We may later, yeah.
the spring or the summer this year, he has tits. I don't know. Overall, I like this episode. I would agree. I thought it was better as far as from a comedic standpoint than the first episode, for sure. I thought there was a lot higher, funnier comic gags that got me to laugh. From a social satire standpoint, I still like the opening season premiere because I liked them bagging on Kanye, and I liked Cartman's craziness itself with Cupid E. And I found that to be, relevant as well to the social situation in which we live in these days.
Well, and I mean, it's the Yee stuff, like, is probably just as recent as the death of the queen and all this stuff with the prince and everything. So, like, I don't think it's like
right. No, I said that
any less relevant.
My
I think they're
perspective,
pretty
right?
much. I think they're pretty on par.
Right.
But no, and I'm not trying to say you're wrong. Like, you're totally inclined to yours.
Yeah, I was saying that's as far as what resonated with me. I felt like the first episode resonated with me more, probably just because I'm more aware of what's going on there than to be quite honest. I don't keep up with monarchies and kings and queens of other countries. I don't give a shit. No disrespect if that's your country. I hope you don't give a shit about my government either, because unless we're like, trading with you and it affects your foreign policy or something like that, why would you care? Like, everyone has their own day-to-day lives. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, as Stan and everyone else said, I don't give a shit. That's how I felt, the boys in the cafeteria. I don't give a shit about this, Kyle. So that was a great commentary as well. Anything else you want to plug, Joe, or anything else you got to say about the episode before I let you get your plugs in?
Nah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, each and every week, myself, Matthew Schaffer, the rest of my crew here, we review South Park in linear fashion, which you can check out on all podcast outlets. When you're watching this episode, the video version of SMB 165, because we got the number wrong again, is up on YouTube, and it's up on podcast format. More crap. You can check us out live Tuesday, February 21st, twitch.tv/SouthParkPod, and right here on youtube.com/SouthParkPod for Imagination Land episode 1 review with myself, Joe Dane, and hopefully our boy Scoop. Yeah. That's available right now. And of course, you've heard his voice throughout this whole episode. He is the 2022 Red Rocks Day 1 South Park trivia champion. He's the doctor of thugonomics, polyphonics, thugonomics, scooponomics, and we affectionately refer to him as a trivia god. Joe Vernola, go ahead and plug your stuff. What's going on in your world?
Saturday night, the 18th of February, Colorado Springs, Colorado Sunshine Studios Live. There's about 20 tickets left for that. Or you can watch that on their YouTube. I believe that is official Colorado Springs Wrestling 719, something like that. I will have a link on Twitter soon. And then Sunday, February 19th, Primo's Premier Pro Wrestling at the Roxy Theater, 2549 Wilton Street in 5 Points, Denver. for Bishop Takes King, or if you are not in the area, you can get that on Fight.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course, shout out to our boy, Dane Becker. Go check out Championship Wrestling's newest addition to their broadcast syndication territorial takeover, Derby City Wrestling. It's out of Louisville, Kentucky. So go follow Championship Wrestling or United Wrestling Network on all social media platforms to get all the updates on the launch of Derby City Wrestling coming in March. Looked like there was a picture of their champion, Danny Limelight, on the cover. So I'm sure he'll be making an appearance on the first ever episode. You can also just go check out the Red Carpet Rumble. I was there. You might see me in the crowd. Took place here in Mesa, Arizona last month. United Wrestling Network. Go check that out. Shout out to our boy, of course, Scoop. He's going through some stuff. I haven't really put it out here, but Scoop had some glass fall on him, and then he had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then he slipped and fell again, he told me. And then so he had to go back to the hospital. And then his mom's in the hospital for some other stuff that I'm not going to publicly share here. I'll tell you afterwards. So he's all over the place right now.
Yeah.
He's doing okay with school and stuff like that, but he's just going through some stuff. So shout out to Scoop. Hopefully he'll feel, maybe he's feeling better. He tried to join us, like I said, for the Bono episode this week, but had to go check on his mom in the hospital. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, though, that is going to do it for another edition of this week's season 26 reaction recap video. I think I'm just going to leave it how it is, Joe. I'm not going to enter any audio. I'm just going to leave the clips. I think it'll help us get around copyright this week. It'll probably reduce my amount of editing I have to do. So check out their full episode. It'll be on HBO Max Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm Matt Schaefer. That's Joe Vernola. We'll be back next week for another review. I guess we're going to be back for 3 things next week, or Imagination Land and the season 26 episode 3. If there is a new episode, we don't know. Hopefully.
Yeah.
They haven't announced it. They could take a break off. But just know, South Park's there. We'll be there to review it. See you next week.